Good day. Welcome to the Inclusive Education in Specific Learning Difficulties unit for the study courses for pre-primary, junior primary, senior primary, and secondary. And these are the guidelines for the examination for Inclusive Education 2019. I'm your tutor, Ms. Regina Carices. My objectives for this session is firstly for me to go through the examination question paper to see what is being set up in the paper, what is the format of the paper, and also for you to understand the examination questions based on the exact learning outcomes, which are also called the specific learning outcomes of the units that you are having, and also lastly to understand the importance of Bloom's taxonomy and how it is related to the examination questions. Those are the objectives for our session for the examination. The assessment policy, it's very important. You need to get a final mark of 50% is required, calculated by the 60% of the examination mark, and then 40% is coming from your continuous assessment mark, which comes from your assignment, and in total, in the examination, you must get above 50%, 50 or above. So you must attain that mark in order for you to pass your examination. That's our assessment policy. A very important point that I mentioned as the objectives of our session is the Bloom's taxonomy. Bloom's taxonomy, it's all over education that it guides us on what learning outcomes do we want our students or our learners to achieve at the end of the day. So Bloom's taxonomy it's a guide that tells us that this learner has attained certain knowledge, skills, or values or ideas at the end of the day, based on the verbs that we are using to frame the questions, to find out what kind of understanding do you have. Can you evaluate concepts, or can you evaluate a topic? Did you understand what is in that unit? Did you understand the learning outcome at the end of the day? Do you remember some information concerning that learning outcome that we are having? So Bloom's taxonomy, it's a guide for us to conduct assessment in all our teaching and learning sections. So firstly, there is one of the highest form that we have in Bloom's taxonomy. It's a grading. It's where you need to create something. For us, if I bring it back to our inclusive education unit, then it means that you need to create, say for instance, the individual education plan. So that's now based on the highest order of questions. But when we come down to the lowest, is remembering, where we ask for definitions on what is inclusive education, what is a disability. So those are remembering questions. Analyzing is when we come to say that analyze how will you support a child with visual impairment, but it's having also another disability besides having visual impairment. So there we use the terms like explore, examine, compare, contrast, organize. So that's where you analyze the what is being asked within that question. So in a nutshell, Bloom's taxonomy is something that you really need to know, understand the verbs that are being used, and know how to apply the knowledge that you are having based on the question that is being asked. Let's move forward and go into the examination format. It's a 2-hour paper, 2.5 hours, 2.5 hour paper out of 120 marks. All of them are open-ended questions that examines your understanding, your application of knowledge and skills and ideas. That's very important. Why do we conduct examinations? Why do we conduct assignments? That is for us to find out whether you have understanding. Can you apply your knowledge? Do you have the skills to apply your knowledge? Do you have an idea about the given concepts or the given topic? Do you know what is going on? So that is what we are seeking at the end of the day when we conduct assessment. And very importantly, you need to answer on your examination script, and there's an extra page at the end of your question paper. If the space given for that question is not enough, then you can write at the back side of your examination paper. So that is the format of the examination. And let's look at the examination guidance. So this is very important, that all the students need to be conscious of what are the marks allocated to these questions, and then answer accordingly. If it is a 5-question mark, then you are writing 2.5 pages for that question. Then it really means that you are now just throwing out everything and trying to make sense to say that find the answer there. So it's very important that you look for facts, and that you write down what the question is asking for. If it is a description question, if it's a question that says evaluate or define or discuss, based on that question, then you answer accordingly. And secondly, it's very important that you need to know that all questions have command words that are aimed to tell the students what to answer. These command words, again, we go back to the Bloom's taxonomy. Those are the command words, the verbs that we use. And often these words are being misinterpreted by our students. A very good example of this is when a question is asking for a description, then a student is giving an explanation. So that is one of the things that are happening, where the student misinterprets the questions and then answers only when he sees the main topic, but doesn't know what that question is asking. So very importantly, know the command words, know Bloom taxonomy, those commanding verbs that are there. Again, study the Bloom's taxonomy, and know how to answer based on those verbs that are given or the command words. Answer the question what is asking for, not what you think it's asking. So again, it comes back to the example that I said, that when you see the main term, or we call it the red catching word, then you try to answer that word, but not what the question is asking for. And very importantly, when answering the questions, there should always be a link between the theory and the practice. If we talk about inclusive classroom practices, now we know the theory, what is inclusive education, but then to apply the theory in practices is to say what are inclusive practices in a classroom. So try to apply the knowledge that you have within the question paper, within the examination. Use examples that you experience within your classrooms, or things that are happening within your community. So try to be practical instead of just copying straight from your study guide or wherever you are getting the information from. So that's the examination guidance that I can give you. So we go now to the examination question paper. It's out of 4 questions. Question 1 is out of 30 marks. This 30 marks consists of 5 to 10 mark questions that are within this paper. And these marks are looking at questions that are remembering questions and application questions. Remembering goes back to Bloom's taxonomy, define, discuss, things that you really need to remember to bring it across. And application questions are where you need to apply your knowledge. If one is to ask you to say, what are the supporting techniques of working with learners now, you are applying your knowledge within this question. So I mentioned bullet 3 already. Now bullet 4 already, but bullet 3 says the students will be able to define terminologies found in every unit. So these are the concepts of special education. So terminologies, the main vocabulary words, the main basic terms within that unit, you need to define them. If we look at unit 1, there are terms like disability, there are terms like inclusion, inclusive education. You need to know those terms. Those are basic terminologies of inclusive education that you really need to just define. It's just remembering words that you really have to know all about. And then again, excellent learning outcome 3, examine the supporting techniques of working with learners with special educational needs. Supporting techniques. Now, within this unit, there are many disabilities. And I know many of the students are struggling to understand and to capture what these disabilities are all about. So I will advise you really to start early to study this unit. Start early, do a mind map of what is this disability about. How can one support a learner with hearing impairment? So main focus that will come from Exit Learning Outcome 3, it's supporting techniques. As I said, do a mind map and write on at least 5 to 10 points on how to support learners with special educational needs. For instance, a visual impairment. How do I support the child in my classroom in terms of teaching and learning? Always bring down your question to teaching and learning, because that is the focus of what we want to know. What do you understand about teaching and learning in terms of supporting this learner? Question 2, it's again also out of 30 marks. The range of the marks are from 5 to 10 marks each and every question. It's a remembering, understanding, and applying type of questions that are there. Here in question 2, you need to focus on Exit Learning Outcome 2, Unit 1, which focuses on evaluate, discuss, and apply the models of special needs education. Now, this is a unit on its own. There are different models, there are different categories and concepts within this unit. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to focus just on one model of special needs. So take hold of that note that I'm mentioning there, that you need to know different models, categories, and concepts that are also called the models of special needs education. I will take an example. We look at what is a Namibian model of inclusive education. That's within that study unit again. And then we look at what are the models and the categories that we find when we say this child is having a special need based on which disability again. So within this unit, there are different models that you really have to sit down and study and get an overall understanding of what this unit is all about. So that is Exit Learning Outcome 1. Exit Learning Outcome 6, it's also there's a question based on that Exit Learning Outcome, which states that evaluate the factors that influence the interaction of teacher with the family. Now, there are different factors, and within this unit also, it doesn't only focus on factors, there are also different other things. It focuses on how to create an inclusive classroom also, and it seems to me many times students tend to just focus on what this outcome is saying, but there are many topics within this unit. So try to study this unit, because there's a question again from this unit that comes either in question 3 or question 4. So that's why I'm saying understand the topics that are found within this unit. We look at Exit Learning Outcome 7. Again, we are basically with question 2 still. Here it's about assessment approaches and issues that it has for children with learning difficulties. And here we'll provide you a case study. And then based on this case study, then you need to answer from this unit. Now, when you study this unit, again, there are many topics under it. Assessment approaches entails many things. There is assessment accommodation. There is the traditional versus the alternative assessment. So there are different things in this unit again. Summarize the topics that are there and try to zoom down to main things that are found within this Exit Learning Outcome 7 that you really need to focus on. So it focuses on assessment approaches and how do these approaches influence, or how are these approaches used for the children with learning difficulties. Now, when you find an approach, look at how this approach is being applied, because the questions are application questions that will come from this unit also. So if we look at assessment accommodation and we look at a learner with hearing impairment, what kind of assessment accommodations will I apply to this child? So when you study, do a critical analysis of what is this unit saying and what outcomes do we want at the end of this study that you need to know from this unit. We move on to question 3. Again, it's also 30 marks. And it's from ranges from 2 to 15 marks. So there are some questions that might have 2-mark questions. And answers that you need to provide for us. And it focuses on remembering, understanding, and analyzing type of questions. Again, Bloom's taxonomy. So take note that there are many remembering questions here that we really want you to remember your work and understand and apply the knowledge that you are having. Within this question 3, we look at excellent learning outcome 5, which is again also another unit that is having many special educational needs that you really have to study. Again, do a mind map. I really believe in mind maps because it gives me a picture of what I'm studying for and where am I going with this topic. So you kind of have a holistic view of what is going on in that unit if you do a mind map. So it looks at causes and techniques. Excellent learning outcome 3, we are looking at supporting techniques. Now here in 5, again with the special needs, it's about the causes that are there and techniques on how to support. So it's 2 things that you need to focus on. So if we take a child with Down syndrome here, for example, then you need to know what are the causes of Down syndrome and how do I need to support this learner with a Down syndrome. So again, this is a case study that is provided, and then you need to answer that case study. There are questions based on the case study that you need to answer. But again, you need to know the type of disability, its causes, and its techniques. And then excellent learning outcome 2, it's about international perspectives and legislations that are protecting the rights of special needs individuals. International, we go to Education for All, we go to Salamanga. So those are the laws, the policies that are there, that are safeguarding, that every country needs to contextualize and make a provision for policies and laws that support for the learners with special needs. So you need to know the international perspectives, and then you need to know the national ones. In Namibia, what policies and legislations are there that support the inclusive education? So in Namibia, our focus in the study unit, it's mainly on the inclusive education policy, and the international policy, the Education for All, that we again have to come and contextualize it within the Namibian context. So the EFA, the Education for All policy, it's both international and it's also a national policy that we are applying within the context of special needs learners. So know and understand that. Again, it's 2 to 15 marks questions that are in this unit. And lastly, question 4, it's around 30 marks also, and here it's from 10 to 15 marks questions that are there. And here again also is a remembering questions, understanding and analyzing type of questions that are there. We look at excellent learning outcome 4, the aspects of child abuse. There are different aspects. The question can come to say, what are the type of abuses? And then zoom in and focus on type of abuses to say, what are the symptoms and signs that a child might have who is been physically abused. So try to make a summary of this excellent learning outcome 4 and look at the main aspects concerning child abuse within the study unit. The excellent learning outcome 8 looks at the inclusive environments and the individual education plan. Very important. And these are 2 of my favorite concepts. The inclusive environments. How do we create inclusive environments? And how do we support a child with a special need? And that support comes from the IEP, the individual education plan. And this plan can be applied within any context. It can say a child with visual impairment, create a individual education plan for the child. Again, it's application question that comes in. So within exit learning outcome 8, there are different topics, and within those topics, there are different outcomes that you need to focus on. But as I said, the two main things that I emphasize here, it's the inclusive environments and the IEP that is very important. IEP, it's not just a once-off concept. It's also, again, a concept of special needs that you need to know the definition of. But then again, you need to apply that concept in terms of what are the stages, how do we apply the IEP in a classroom, what are the formats, what is the format, how does the IEP look like? So many questions can come out from this unit for IEP and the inclusive environments that are there. And we go on and we look at exit learning outcome 7. It's again also on assessment approaches and issues for learners with learning difficulties. I think if we go back to question 2, it also talks about assessment approaches. So note again, there are different topics within exit learning outcome 7. There can be a question in question 2, a different question, and if we move on, in question 4 again, there can be another different question coming from this exit learning outcome 7 on assessment approaches. So there are different topics within this unit. And lastly, the exit learning outcome 6 also, it comes also in question 2. Question 2, the factors that influence the interaction between the teachers and the family, and we find it again here in question 4. So again, different topics within that exit learning outcome, and you need to study all those topics that you understand what is within that unit. The main aim for us at the end of this unit is what are the factors influencing interaction between the teachers and the family, and the factors cannot only focus on if I mention one, cultural factors. It's not only that one topic that is said, but there are different factors within this unit that you really have to understand and apply them for understanding of what the question is asking you. So in a nutshell, that is our examination paper out of 120 marks. And if you have any questions, there is contact that I'll give at the end of the day, and end of the slides that you can contact me on. Very importantly, know that this paper is directed for students who are doing the pre-primary, junior primary, senior primary, and secondary education students that are studying within this direction. So it is for all the students that are doing inclusive education. The topics are based on comprehensive exit learning outcomes, which the student needs to consider under every exit learning outcome. So when you are studying, take what are the specific outcomes of this unit? What do I need to know at the end of the day when I'm studying this unit? And then based on that exit learning outcome, then conduct your study. Very important. Do not limit your information only on study guides, but read widely, consult books, internet, and have study groups. It's very important to have interaction with your fellow students that you can focus on. How do you answer this question? Can you explain this question to me? That you can reflect and hear how the other students are understanding the topic, instead of just having things for yourself and isolating yourself and studying in isolation. Have study groups with your fellow students. Very important. And the study guide should not be your only source that guides you on how to study. Consult. And very importantly, consult your tutor. Consult me and find out, ma'am, I understand this topic this and this way. Is it correct? And then I can guide you and direct you and say, no, I think it's this way. Can you go and do a summary for me? Then I can guide you again on it. My contact details, the cell phone number is still the same, 081-27-14037. It's my cell phone number. The emails, you can send me an email, but then I won't answer it right away, but I will come back to you and give you more in-depth answers when you send me an email. And then contact times are between weekdays, up to Thursday weekdays, it's from 7:30 up to 8:30, and in weekends it's from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock. Weekends it's Saturday only, and weekdays comes from Monday up to Thursday. So I don't count in Friday. It's part of the weekend also. So contact time 7:30 to 8:30. So that is my contact information. And very important logo of IOL is that education is the greatest equalizer. And as a student who is in training to become a teacher, you are to equalize, you are to abolish yourself to study, read and get knowledge, understanding and values from what you are reading, and then apply that knowledge and become an excellent teacher that is there to make the Namibian child proud and a child that is prepared for industrialized country. So education is the greatest equalizer. So we encourage you to read widely and to study very smart.